Hi everyone, welcome to this mentoring masterclass with Mirya Sumalov. Mirya Sumalov is a global citizen who is passionate about unity and collaboration. She's dedicated her life to teaching individuals and companies how to create a harmonious environment for a higher level of thriving. Mirya teaches that healthy relationships are often the missing link between the current starting point and exponential growth towards the desired outcome. Whether it's the individual empowering themselves by aligning the four people within, or the company looking to build honoring relationships both with their team members and their business partners, Mirya shows open-minded leaders how to reach their goals and objectives while building meaningful, long-lasting relationships on the way. Mirya is a highly sought-after international mentor, speaker, and relationship strategist. She's helped thousands of people in over 50 industries to turn their deepest individual dreams into an everyday reality. Mirya has been regarded as an inspiring advocate for individuals who want to live a happy, harmonious, and a meaningful life. This led her to compile and pass on her mentoring skills to a selected group of students through her Associate Mentor Program. Some of her top students are offered an opportunity to work alongside Mirya as she continues to affect the planet by empowering individuals and creating global collaboration. But in Mirya's own words, that's enough about me. Let's get on with today's work. Here's Mirya.
Hey everyone, it's Mirya here. It's great to be here with you today. What a wonderful day to come together and talk about how to become an extraordinary mentor or how to be an extraordinary mentor. So before we start, what I'd like to do, if you're up for it, I'd like to see how global we are today. So if in your question and answers box or even in your chat box, if you just like to give us a little bit of an idea of who's here and whereabouts you are and whereabouts in the world you are, and let's have a look. Okay, we have Czech Republic. That's awesome. Welcome, Katka. We have Adam, of course, from Sydney. It's great to see you as always. Bron is from Melbourne. Great to see you, Bron. Lisa is from New York. We have Wisconsin as well. We have Katharina from Austria. Wow, we're all over the place today. That's really, really exciting. Krista is from Finland. We have Brent, who's in Portland, Oregon. We have Jenna in Denver. That's wonderful. We are so all over the place. And Heather, of course, from Boston, Massachusetts, blah, 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 in the US. And Naomi, hi, from Portland. Great to have you all here. Yeah, it's so exciting to be here with you today. So throughout the webinar, you might get some kind of, questions coming up, and you might get like an urgent thought or an urgent idea, and you might want to ask a question. And by all means, send us a question either in the question pane, the Q&A pane in your webinar program, or put it in the chat. And at the end, we're going to do a Q&A, and I'll address as many of your questions as I possibly can. I will warn you though, today's session is full of information, and so I hope that you brought your pens and your papers and that you're ready to take some serious notes. We have a lot to do today. So over the next 90 minutes, I'm going to be looking forward to sharing with you the qualities that I consider to be like the 5 pillars of being an extraordinary mentor. Now, some of you don't know this, but my mission in life is to leave the world a more supportive and caring place than how I found it. And by sharing this information with you today, I look forward to having you be a part of that mission. Now, over the last 20 years or so, I've been researching human struggle in the first world countries predominantly. And it seems like social isolation is a big part of why we're struggling in silence. We're not really taught to ask for help. We're not taught to speak up because there's such a pressure to appear to be competent and like you have your, everything's together. You have everything all together. And sometimes we even have that kind of perfectionistic kind of pressure. Can any of you relate to that? Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of us here who can relate to that. So the remedy for this global struggle, as far as I've seen, is to build supportive and caring networks where we're then free to authentically, be who we are, but also ask for help. Say, I'm not okay. Can you help me? And on a global scale, the more people we can empower ourselves, the more empowered decisions all of us make. And when we feel empowered and when we make empowered decisions, that then leads all of us, into more success. And when others see us succeed and feel more empowered, they will be inspired to empower themselves too. And this is like a spiral of global empowerment. And that this is how it can start to really affect that, jump from one person to the next. Like, in our case here, we work with people. I literally teach others how to empower themselves, who then teach others how to empower themselves. So this spiral of empowerment not only transforms the life of the person doing the work with me, but it also inspires empowerment in the people that are around those people that I work with. And this, as I said, this is how we can affect global change. Now imagine if there's 5 of us. So there's 20 people on this call right now, 20 of us. If only 5 of us, or say 10 of us, half of us, or maybe all of us, if we would do that, if we, empowered ourselves to a point where we inspired empowerment in others, what would that world look like? So let's have a moment to think about it. Put down your notes, put it in the chat. What would it look like? Brent is saying social isolation can be very subtle and pernicious or explicitly painful, which he has a personal experience. So yeah, these are great things. If we could change, if some of us or even all of us could affect that kind of change, what would the world look like? It would feel safer. Somebody says, yeah, for sure. My children would have the opportunities that I didn't have. Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. People would live fully. I hate my job. If I had more support, I could choose more suitable profession. That's so good. World would play rather than fear. Yeah, I think so. I agree with that. Such amazing answers, and keep them coming. I'm happy to keep reading your messages a little bit later, but those are amazing answers. And yes, I think most of us can relate to a lot of those answers, and it truly is such a privilege to be on this call with so many of you who want to affect change by making the world a more caring and supportive place for us all. And of course, this passion, that we have, it's not enough. Just the passion alone is not enough to affect change. If we really want to affect change, be it globally or even locally, just in your local surroundings, we need to have certain groups of skills. And these groups of skills is what I call the Pentagon of mentoring. So, as you know, the shape of pentagon has 5 sides and 5 corners, as you can see on the screen. Think about an equally angled pentagon, such as the one right here. If the weight of the structure is distributed between the 5 corners equally, then the structure is solid. And it's even more solid than a square because it has more points of balance. If, on the other hand, the angles of the structure were irregular, then some of the corners would be bearing more weight than others. Does that make sense? So this can make the structure very imbalanced and even unstable. And that's not what we want. So when we're looking at becoming an extraordinary mentor or being an extraordinary mentor, we want to build that success on a model of a pentagon of mentoring. So an extraordinary mentor exists in that equally angled pentagon, the pillars that keep the structure stable, balanced, and authentic, as you can see from the screen, are pillar number 1, you as a mentor, at the top there. Pillar number 2, your mentoring approach. Pillar number 3, your client's experience of your mentoring. Pillar number 4, client guidance tools. And pillar number 5, finding the right clients to help. So if any of these pillars are out of balance, as I said, the whole structure is out of balance. For example, if you are really, really good with using your client guidance tools, but you don't have the right clients to help, you're out of balance when it comes to affecting change in a sustainable way, because you're talking to the wrong people. You have the great tools, but you're talking to the wrong people who aren't in that space to change. The same is true for any pairing of these pillars. If any of them are out of balance, then the structure is unbalanced. You guessed it. So let's look at what makes a mentor extraordinary and how you can keep your mentoring structure solid and balanced. So the very first thing we're going to be looking at today is you as a mentor. So without knowing who you are as a mentor and what value you have to offer to the world, for example, branding and finding the right clients to work with is going to be very challenging. To truly serve your clients, you need to understand and master your commitment to others' change, your listening skills, your intuitive skills, your mind management and mind growth, your body maintenance. You need to also understand and master tapping into your own personal experiences for power, and also expanding your personal horizons for the benefits of your clients. So let's talk about commitment to others' change. This is all about why you are becoming a mentor, or why you are a mentor. The why of the reason why you do this work is what will power your engine. So take a note for after the webinar to write down, what is my why? Why do I want to have effect? Why do I want to affect change? So don't try to do that now. That might be because we have a lot of content to go through today. So it might be too much at the end. So why? What's your why? Why do you want to mentor people? And there are no wrong answers. You also kind of show your level of commitment through setting your own standard of mentoring yourself for your clients. So nobody likes a hypocrite. Extraordinary mentors never stop learning and deepening their own understanding about themselves and the industry. And also, we need to understand that when we're talking about your commitment to other people's change, there are a level of change that happens within people. So there's 6 stages. There's pre-contemplation, contemplation, determination, action. Then there's this big bunch of maintenance, relapse, and recycle. And finally, termination. And knowing those stages of change, pre-contemplation, contemplation, determination, action, maintenance, relapse, recycle in one, and termination. When you know those stages of change, then you can understand that you can work your commitment to others' change based on where they are themselves. So when somebody is in pre-contemplation or contemplation, they're not ready to take action other than just gather information yet. Determination starts kind of the action. So now they're determined to start to take action. The action stage, of course, is all about taking action. And the action stage is really where most people are ready to change and ready to be mentored. And then you have the maintenance, relapse, recycle stage, which is all about deepening your learnings and your client deepening their learnings and not being afraid to fail forward. And finally, of course, we have termination phase, which a lot of people say, you know, I'm over this or I'm over that. I don't believe that we ever get over things. We don't ever fully heal something. How I perceive termination stage is that the issue no longer runs your everyday life. So I hope that makes sense. So again, the 6 stages: pre-contemplation, contemplation, determination, action, maintenance, relapse and recycle, and termination. So I hope you're not going to get writer's cramp today. Okay, let's talk about your listening skills. So when we're mentoring, you know, extraordinary mentors don't just listen. They make their clients feel heard. Now, there are 3 different types of listening. There's grasping listening, there's focused listening, and comprehensive listening. And the difference between those different types of listening is that grasping listening is all about you trying to make out what the person is saying in relation to you and how it affects you. So if you think about yourself as a mentor, grasping listening is not a great way to start a mentoring relationship where you need to find out where the person's at, because you're using subjective points of reference. Focused listening is a type of listening where you and your client are basically the only people in the whole world in that moment doing that thing right now. And that's it. There's nothing else that exists outside of that. So it's very intense. You've probably, if you're an intuitive person, or you know, if you're an introverted intuitive person, I think there's quite a few of those here, quite a few of you here today. You probably are familiar, especially with that intuitive ability. You're probably really will have had an experience of focused listening where you just tune into the other person and nothing else kind of matters. Nothing else goes around you. And then, but if you're doing focused listening with your clients, then focused listening basically means that the client doesn't exist in the world that they actually exist in. So there are no external points of reference and existence of the client outside of that particular conversation. And that's why we need comprehensive listening, which is you listening to the person and what they're saying fully, but in the context of their lives, you know, where they are right now, where they say they want to go. So let's move on to intuitive skills. So your intuitive skills, we all actually have an intuitive part of us, so none of us don't not have it. For some of us, they're more kind of fluent and easy than for other people. And just like learning to pay attention to your surroundings, learning to be more intuitive is actually possible. Intuition is a high level pattern recognition skill. Okay, so you know, you get a sense of something. That's your intuition telling you, I have a sense of this. You know, something's happening over there that's not being said. Now, you have gathered information knowingly or unknowingly that, you know, the other person is not saying something, and the information that you gathered may have been, you know, like a tense posture or a facial expression, you know, like shifty eyes or holding their breath, or, you know, withholding, you know, like crossing their arms, you know, withholding their body from it. They can't be relaxed. So I just want to say, for some of us, we're more fluent in our intuitive skills because for some of us, the intuitive part of us is what I call one of our grown-up parts of us, are either our adult self or our inner parent. I won't go into that too much today, the concept of the 4 people within. I will mention it later, but if you have more questions about it, I'm happy to talk about it, or I can forward you more material on that. But for some of us who are more fluent in intuitive skills, it basically means that we've, for a really long time of our lives, or during long durations of our lives, we've been using intuition to gather information. So we're just more fluent than other people. So for some other people, they might have sensing as their preferred way of collecting information from their surroundings, as opposed to intuiting what's happening. So we all have different levels of intuitive power, but as I said, it's a skill. It can be practiced, and when it's practiced, it gives your clients much deeper results in a much faster pace. So let's talk about mind management and mind growth. As I mentioned before, our personal growth as a mentor is imperative. One could say that our mind is our greatest asset. Our mind is like our computer. If we don't have the right software, we can't do the tasks that we want to do. So if we don't service the computer and we don't look after the machine, it can become slow and ineffective. And the same is true for our mind. If we don't clean and arrange the files in the computer from time to time, our machine can become overwhelmed and it loses its ability to perform, overheating and all those kinds of things. So an extraordinary mentor realizes that our mind is one of our biggest assets and looks after it, feeds it properly, really gives it enough rest, doesn't overuse it, doesn't abuse it with substances. If we want to be an extraordinary mentor, we need to have a really clear connection to our mind and a really supportive relationship with our mind. Okay, and next is body maintenance. And much like our mind, our body is an important asset in mentoring. So imagine that your body is the car that drives your mind, the computer around. If you don't fill the gas tank, you'll soon run out of energy, right? If you don't pump up the tires, you'll veer off the road, worst case scenario. If you don't know how to drive, you'll get into dangerous situations. And looking after your body is so much more important than most people ever know. Our body houses our mind. Our mind cannot work clearly and cleanly if our body is unhealthy. And many don't ever understand the importance of looking after your body, what it does for the whole of your experience, unless, of course, you've had experienced exhaustion or adrenal fatigue or brain injury or PTSD. Then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's look at tapping into your experience. So there's a big difference between mentors and coaches, and that's this. Mentors generally can relate to their clients' experience in a very personal, first-person way. Whereas a lot of coaches learn to, like a set of tools to be able to teach the client technically how to move forward from where they are to where they want to go. Each of those disciplines are very important, okay? But today we're talking about mentoring. So if we're talking about you becoming an extraordinary mentor, being an extraordinary mentor, you need to be able to tap into your personal experiences so that you can really draw that wisdom that can only be gained by the hard miles that you've done. Okay? An extraordinary mentor is someone who has a personal point of reference to what their client is going through. And to be an extraordinary mentor, you have to be able to tap into your painful past experiences so that you'll be able to act as a flashlight for those who are following in your footsteps. And finally, let's look at expanding your personal horizons for the benefit of your clients. So as I mentioned before, an extraordinary mentor never stops learning. Whatever painful experiences you have gone through will always pop up from time to time at different levels. As I was saying, also, in the termination stage of our change, they don't ever go away fully. It's just that it doesn't rule your life, and also you know what to do with it. But there is an upside to these painful experiences and them popping up from time to time. when we heal those wounds to a point where we can begin to kind of grow from them, so when they no longer hold us back on a day-to-day basis, when we get some perspective on those wounds, what will actually happen is we will begin to see why we were having to go through that painful experience. And it might be in a conversation with somebody. So let's just say I'm out there, I'm doing my thing, I'm at the coffee shop. There's a person next to me who's having a really hard time. I don't know this person, but all of a sudden they start crying. And because I have a high level of empathy, I might say, hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? Here's a napkin, and if you want to talk, I'm here. And they might say, I just remembered that when I was 5, I was sexually abused by a family friend. And for somebody like myself who's gone through that personally, then I can offer that person something from all of those tools that I created when I went through my healing journey. And when I'm sitting with that person and I'm talking to them and I'm supporting them and I'm saying what they would consider to be all the right things, then in those moments is when I realize why I had to go through those things. Because if I hadn't gone through those things, this person would not have the support right now. And so once your attention moves away from the painful experience being a painful experience and into a more neutral experience, you can then start to look forward to actually helping people with the tools that you gathered because you went through those experiences. So once that pain subsides, and the greatest gifts, imagine giving that gift to that person. Imagine giving that comfort. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. And you're safe right now. Those greatest gifts, the ability to do that, those gifts lie behind and beneath our deepest wounds. And when we discover and embrace and develop all of those gifts that lie beneath those deepest wounds, that's when we become extraordinary mentors for our clients, because we can help our clients to transform their wounds into something very powerful and maybe even something very beautiful. Okay, let's talk about pillar number 2. So your mentoring approach. While it's important to know why you do what you do, to be an extraordinary mentor, you also need to know which parameters you will be working with. Your mentoring approach is like a container that holds all those parameters that you're working within. And those parameters include levels of consciousness, conditioning, boundaries, the 5 areas of mentoring, your mentoring code of conduct, and your mentoring logistics, as well as your mentoring format. So let's start with the levels of consciousness. An extraordinary mentor knows the difference between the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind, and what their relationship is with one another. The conscious mind holds all the information that we know to be. Things like the chair you're sitting on right now, or maybe you're sitting on the floor, the cushion. Things like a specific emotion of possible excitement when you think about maybe empowering others as a result of this webinar, or setting specific mentoring goals for yourself. Those are all things that you can very consciously think about. Now, working with the client with the conscious mind helps them set goals and take measured steps towards those goals. The conscious mind is something that we are very much aware of, whereas the subconscious mind is like the world of hunches and revelations and intuitive flashes. You know, when your client is working with the subconscious mind, they get all these, what they describe as light bulb moments. Perhaps you've had some of those too. These are the moments when something in the subconscious becomes conscious, when you go, got it. The subconscious mind is very, very impressionable. It takes orders from the conscious mind, and this is why how you speak to yourself matters so much. So, for example, if you believe that someone doesn't like you, your subconscious mind will look for evidence for it to be true. And many a time has a person been wrong about this kind of thing just because their internal dialogue was asking the subconscious mind to point out the things that were, inverted commas, wrong. So pointing the flashlight off its focus on the things that were wrong. Has that ever happened to you? You found out, like, after the fact that in fact they didn't hate you after all, but you thought they did. This is something that happens often. I hear it often. And finally, the unconscious mind is the biggest part of our consciousness as people. Its capacity is unmeasurable, and it holds all the things that we are not consciously aware of and things that don't reside in the subconscious or in the conscious. So effectively, we are completely blind to the things that live in the unconscious mind. And the vastness of the unconscious mind keeps us from ever fully knowing ourselves. This preserves the sense of kind of life's mystery and wonder. So if we were completely aware of everything, as in if we didn't have this massive reservoir of unconscious mind, we would very, very soon learn everything there was to learn about life. And life would become very, very boring. Have you ever heard of the word cognitive dissonance? So cognitive dissonance is an experience where a person is told something that resides in their unconscious mind. So I'm going to tell you something that you're not aware of. And because you're not aware of this, it feels like it's untrue. What's being said is untrue. So sometimes we absolutely believe something to be true, and then the circumstances show us time and time again that we're wrong. But it makes absolutely no sense to us. And that's what cognitive dissonance is. It's like we are getting evidence of something that just can't possibly be true, but it just appears to be. And this is what it looks like when we try to access our unconscious mind. It's like this cognitive dissonance after cognitive dissonance, and that's not very healthy. An extraordinary mentor knows not to push the client too far into the subconscious mind, and never to force the person, absolutely never to force the person into their unconscious mind. And it's a skill to know how much your client's conscious mind can be stretched without causing it to strain. So that is something that extraordinary mentors know how to do. Okay, let's talk about conditioning. So conditioning is something that determines all of our blind spots and biases. And conditioning can be emotional. It can be, something good or bad happened and that elicited a certain emotion from you, and that emotion kind of sticks with you anytime something similar happens to what happened originally. It can be also familial, as in your family has shaped you when you were growing up, shaped to be the kind of person that you are. It can be societal, meaning, country or religion or culture in which that you were brought up made you have certain blind spots and biases that you still may have. So unless you have lived abroad and traveled a lot, it's likely that you have the biggest bias of all, which is that you believe that everybody thinks like you. That's the biggest bias of all time, is to say, doesn't everybody think like this? Or doesn't everybody know this? These are the biggest bias of all. People don't know, and people don't, they don't understand. And while all of us have kind of pretty much the same issues, just to different degrees, we don't all think or feel or intuit or sense things in the same way. And an extraordinary mentor immerses themselves in experiences that are different from those in which they grew up. Take time to travel, take time to study and talk to people with different backgrounds and cultural experiences and even political views to your own. A great mentor keeps their mind open, knowing that you can understand where the other person is coming from without actually agreeing with it or adopting that point of view. So you still have the power to choose things that are actually right for yourself. But if your mind is closed, you will not be a good mentor. Okay, next, let's have a look at boundaries. So boundaries are those things that define you from me and me from you. An extraordinary mentor is clear about their boundaries with their clients. And the role of an extraordinary mentor is to facilitate the exploration of the client's needs, motivation, skills, and thought processes. I'm sorry if you can't write this down fast enough. So that was facilitate the exploration of clients' needs, motivations, skills, and thought processes. Also, facilitate real, lasting, positive change for the client. Also, observing, listening, and asking questions. Using questioning techniques to identify suitable solutions. Supporting the client's goals and goal setting, and then assessing the goals and goal setting with them. Encouraging the client's commitment to action. Maintaining a positive, supportive, non-judgmental point of view. Ensuring the client develops personal competencies and does not become dependent on the mentor. That's very important. And work within the client's area of personal competence, as in not push the client too far, as I was mentioning before. Knowing how to stretch the client but not cause strain. Next, an extraordinary mentor knows, masters, and serves their client with all of the 5 areas of mentoring. And the 5 areas of mentoring are creating a vision and direction with the client, helping the client strategize their actions to serve the vision and direction, showing the clients how to upgrade new skills to carry out their new strategies, triggering the client to create a supportive environment for their own evolution, and showing the client how to master their own psychology around wins and challenges in life. So once again, the 5 areas of mentoring: creating vision and direction, helping the client to strategize, create strategies, show them how to upgrade skills, show them how to create a more supportive environment for themselves, and then show them how to master their own psychology. Okay, next we talk about code of conduct. So an extraordinary mentor has a professional code of conduct that is clearly outlined, easy to follow, and includes things like confidentiality, ethical behavior, and responsibilities for both mentor and clients. Now, I feel like a lot of this should be obvious: confidentiality, ethical behavior, responsibilities of both mentor and clients. So I don't really feel like taking huge amount of time to explore this on this call, because we do have a limited amount of time. But if you do have specific questions on it, I'm happy to answer. Okay, let's move on to your mentoring logistics. So every mentor is an individual and is encouraged to live a life that is authentic for them. For sure, there are mentors who love the laptop lifestyle. You know, the travel, the exploration, and new experiences. And those people are, you know, the only constant in their life is their laptop, their headphones, and the internet connection. But not everyone's like that. Some of us want to live in the country and play with our dogs and our horses between mentoring sessions with our clients, and that's totally okay. So creating a logistically planned life, including scheduling rest and work and other responsibilities, will make you a better mentor. An extraordinary mentor knows who they are and how they want their days to look. And this is why they, in turn, then can show their clients how to begin to live a more authentic experience of their own lives. So it's really difficult to teach something that you don't actually know, like that you don't live. And finally, the last part of the pillar number 2, if you want to be an extraordinary mentor, you need to have your mentoring format very clear. So your mentoring format is like a collection of steps that each of the sessions that you do with your client should entail. And these things are things like checking in with the client, going through their wins and challenges, identifying their focus of this particular session in hand, mentoring interactions such as like listening and reflecting and pattern recognition and support, those kinds of things. And these are the very bare minimum for a good mentor. To make a good mentor, what makes a mentor extraordinary is to be able to offer the client, on top of all that, alternative point of views, new strategies, and powerful questions exactly when they need them. Okay, so that's pillar number 2, your mentoring approach. Let's move on to pillar number 3, what your client sees. Now, this is an important pillar for the simple reason that whatever the client sees will either increase their faith in you or it will reduce it. This pillar is all about how you support your clients outside your mentoring sessions. So in the last point, your mentoring format, we went through a little bit about, how you're going to do it within the session, but now we're looking at how we're going to do it outside of the sessions, like within the relationship, but outside of the sessions. So an extraordinary mentor increases the trust between themselves and their client by having solid client support processes, enforcing the agreed upon boundaries as necessary, and then measuring the client's results to highlight how far the client has come in their journey of transformation so far. So client support processes such as doing a suitability call, sending a confirmation email, things like current reality questionnaires and respectful mentoring practices outlining the boundaries of the working relationship. These are the kinds of things that allow the client to relax into the process of their transformation. So it doesn't matter how primitive these systems are. If they're solid, if they're easy to follow, and if they're consistent, the client will feel safe to take on their healing, achievement, or transcendence journey with you. Does that make sense? Now, enforcing the boundaries with clients, believe it or not, good boundaries increase the level of trust between the mentor and the client. Again, an extraordinary mentor is clear and transparent about the boundaries and follows up with any boundary violation immediately, but in kind yet firm manner. And finally, let's talk about measuring clients' results. This is really what shows your client the value of your work. So instead of selling the client a simple feel-good factor of what could be possible, possibilities, an extraordinary mentor simply points out the results that the client has achieved during their work, which makes the feel-good factor a powerful byproduct of your very powerful work together, your powerful working relationship. So for me, the biggest takeaway from pillar number 3 is that it's not enough for you to be a good mentor or even a great mentor. Instead, you need to be able to face your client with your work, so face outwards with your work and build a bridge of trust between the two of you. Because without this pillar, without this trust, you won't have a very solid structure. Okay. Next, let's talk about the pillar number 4, client guidance tools. Now, when it comes to client guidance tools, there are plenty of amazing approaches to choose from. Things like, tools like Myers-Briggs and the 4 people within work, spiral dynamics, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life work, the DISC model, the Enneagram, the drama triangle. These are all amazing approaches with great merit. Now, becoming fluent in any one of these approaches can make you a good mentor, but to become extraordinary, I recommend that you learn at least 3 or 4 of these methods. This allows you to use these tools in a versatile way and gives you the flexibility to pull out whatever tool you need in whatever situation your client presents to you. So remember, a mentor never stops learning. I still learn and familiarize and master 2 to 3 new approaches every year to keep my skill levels current and my ability to serve my clients extraordinarily high. Okay. Pillar number 5. Finding the right client. Oh my gosh. Remember what I was saying in the beginning of the session? If you have all the right tools, but you don't have the right clients, you cannot affect change, at least not effectively. So finding the right clients is not about hunting. It's about farming. No self-respecting mentor behaves like a predator when they spread the word about their service and what they have to offer. I want to be really clear about that. People who still do hard sell are going to be out of business very, very soon. Sorry, I could go on about that. I feel so strongly about this. I just hate people being treated as numbers. It really doesn't work for me personally. But you may have had this experience. Have you ever spoken to a coach whose eyes just immediately glaze over the minute you say you're not available to attend their workshop or their event? Don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. So extraordinary mentors don't treat people as numbers, but what they do is they cultivate knowledge wherever they go. But most importantly, when it's relevant. Okay, when it's relevant. We don't subject people to our mentoring just because we want to be a mentor. We're respectful, direct, and we have healthy appreciation for how we can support others in the context of their lives. This is not about us. This is about the person that's in front of you. To find the right clients, you have to have business goals. You have to be able to manage your income so that you can reach more of the right kinds of people that will actually benefit from your work more easily. Your branding needs to be clear so that people know what you stand for, because your branding is not your letterhead. It's not it's not your website. Your branding is what people think about you when they hear your name. You also need to understand the 3 ways of marketing. The direct marketing, the organic marketing, the relationship marketing, and how all those different things relate to one another. And what's the most authentic expression of marketing for you? Because this marketing, these 3 different ways of marketing is how you get your message to the people who will benefit from it. And also, finally, and not by any stretch of the imagination, the least importantly, because this is one of the most important things in creating trust with your clients. Because remember, if you don't have trust, you don't have it's very difficult to work together. So the person can't really relax in your care. Is you have to allow your clients to have an easy access to a solid value ladder of your mentoring knowledge that brings them from sampling your service pro bono into becoming a highly valued client who respects your work and can't wait in turn to start affecting change in their own environment. And again, I'm happy to discuss any extra questions that you might have about any of these particular, ways of finding the right clients. For me, the biggest takeaway from this 5th and final pillar is this. You will not be the best mentor for every person that you meet. Okay? Remember how we talked about mentors having personal first-hand experience about the topic that their clients are going through? So when you understood why your pain was important for you to go through, sometimes there is actually a mentor who's more suited to work with that client. Okay? So to reiterate, we are not hunters. We are farmers. And if the soil is not right for a particular plant to thrive in, then we plant it in another place. We make recommendations for other mentors who might be a better fit. And this preserves the integrity of our profession as well as safeguards our reputation. And our reputation is so much more important than what you may think. And of course, you will always have people in your life who may want to tarnish your reputation for personal reasons. That can happen. But if you consistently treat people with kindness, fairness, and generosity of soul, your reputation as an extraordinary mentor will soon precede you. When this happens, personally, this is the big breakthrough for when people go from being a beginner mentor, like when they really fully step into that role of supporting people and becoming that extraordinary person with really high level of reputation. That's usually when the money, the income grows exponentially. So this is the kind of the tipping point of when you really start to have a huge amount of freedom and flexibility in your life, because you don't have to work so many hours to get the kind of remuneration that allows you to live the kind of lifestyle that you want to live and you want to choose for yourself. Okay. Now, there is so much more to talk about in any one of these topics. And in fact, this is actually something that I've taken most of the topics. There are extra topics that we go through in our associate mentor program. So this is quite a comprehensive view of what an extraordinary mentor is. But I'm happy to discuss so many of these points and any questions that you might have. And we'll do that shortly. But I will say, though, that if you would like to know if you can become an extraordinary mentor, then please email us at desk@mariasumilov.com to book your 30-minute pro bono suitability call with me. So I will talk to you specifically about your challenges as a mentor or as becoming a mentor. And we'll go through about some action steps that you might be in front of you for you to take next to become this extraordinary mentor. Okay, so let's move on to Q&A. So you can use the Q&A box, or you can use your chat box as well for questions. I have a comment here. That was a very comprehensive session. Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot. We have a lot to talk about on this topic, because we do have a culture of coaches, like a little bit of a saturation of coaches in the world at the moment. But it's only a saturation of coaches that are quite average, I'm sorry to say. I would like to see a higher level of mentors and coaches. There are some really amazing coaches that I have the privilege to know and to work with and so on. So please don't think that I feel like I'm above other people. It's just I want to do what I can in order to improve this experience for all of us. Okay, there's something about a mentor being a real person, not an expert or a guru to simply follow. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree with that more. For me, if somebody puts me on a pedestal, and some of you have worked with me before, if you put me on a pedestal, I will let you down, because I am not a perfect person. I am an individual like everybody else, and the only difference that I might have with the person that I'm working with is that I might have more mileage. It doesn't make me any more special. We all still have the same things. We all have to eat every day. We all have to, this sounds a bit gross, but we all go to the toilet. And it's good to remember that when you're talking to people. So I couldn't agree with that more. There is absolutely something about mentor being a real person. not an expert. And you can still be an expert in your subject matter if you've done a lot of studies. But really, the way I see a mentor is a teammate who basically shines the light, a couple of steps ahead of their client, so that the client can see where they're going. Okay. Jennifer is asking, hi Maria, can you say more about the difference between coaching and mentoring, and if some people might need one over the other? Yeah, sure. So coaching, and please note, I value both equally. I just feel more passionately about mentoring for myself, and I'm actually very skilled at it, which thousands of people can testify. So I believe in going with what you're good at. So if I'm good at mentoring, I'm going to go with mentoring. If somebody's good at coaching, they should totally do coaching because it's so valuable, right? So one of the biggest differences that I see with coaching and mentoring is, and I was actually just having a conversation about this with a coach 2 days ago, is that coaching doesn't require for you to have had personal experience in that field that you're helping the person in, your client in. So they might have theoretical knowledge that will help the person just as well. Now, obviously, some coaches, this is like to generalize like that is a mistake, because not every coach is like that, not at all. I know some really amazing coaches who only coach in the areas where they have had firsthand experience, but they don't really see themselves as a team. Maybe they see themselves as a teammate, but they don't see themselves as peers. Whereas us mentors, and this is what I teach, we are peers with our clients, but we're just peers who are a couple of steps ahead. So we're a lot less kind of at different levels, if that makes sense. A lot of coaching is, if you look at even just sports coaching, a lot of coaching is based on a relationship where you have a coach and a student. And mentors, how I understand it and how I see it, we mentors, we have clients that are valued. So we're at a lot more level playing field. Also, mentors tend to take a more personal interest in their clients' lives than coaches, because there is like an emotional element, because you've gone through the same struggles. You can really relate to the struggles, and you can talk about the struggles together. Often people say, mentoring is free. There's a misperception that mentoring is free. Mentoring can be free, so can be coaching. So you can do coaching or mentoring pro bono, absolutely. But both mentors and coaches can charge for their services. So that's actually a similarity more than a difference. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question like as thoroughly as you'd like it, so please feel free to ask more questions. But those would be the biggest kind of differences that I would see, is the personal involvement. Now, obviously, you don't ever get personally, emotionally, fully involved with your clients ever, because that's just common sense and code of conduct. But you take a personal interest in the experience of the client as a mentor. And also mentors tend to be more peer than coaches, and coaches tend to be a little bit more removed from the situation than mentors. So I hope that answers your question. Please feel free to ask more if that didn't answer your question. Okay, and Maria, can you give us some tips on boundaries? I have issues not to get involved in the client's story personally. Is there a way how to stay involved but not too much? Yes, and this is actually a massive topic. Okay, this is a massive topic. So we won't have time to go into all of it right now. So if I may, I might just come back to this, Katka. I'll just come back to this shortly, because there might be shorter questions that I can take right now, because I want to use as much time as I possibly can out of the time that we have left to make sure that I'm giving you as much value as possible. So I'll come back to that. And so Bron is saying, with regard to coaches, anyone can call themselves a coach if they've done a short course. For sure, there are coaches who are doing, like life coaches. You can literally do a life coaching course in a weekend. Okay. And for me, like I see a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people, and one of the most inspiring experiences of my whole entire life was a colleague or a lady that I used to work with in an office environment. This is over 20 years ago. So, because I, obviously haven't been employed for for a very long time. I'm not a very employable person because I have a lot of ideas. But well, that's a joke. I just love being self-employed and really creating, have the freedom to create what I want. However, one of the most inspiring experiences of my life was back then. I still remember this like it was yesterday. The lady had taken, my colleague at that job had taken a life coaching course, a weekend course, and she came to work on Monday, and I asked her, how are you going? How did you go? What was it like? What do you know now? And she said, all I know, and she was in her 20s, all I know is I don't know anything yet. And I can't do this life coaching because I just don't know enough to help other people. So, so there is a kind of, if you do go and execute like a weekend course, you can really only get so many tools. You still have to practice. But for example, what Bron is saying here, there are longer coaching courses for sure. There are a couple of months, whatever, 6 months. Our associate mentor program is actually a year-long program. So it's like we hold your hand, taking you from step one of getting to know, you as a mentor. Why are you doing this, and what do you want to do going forward, and so on. Into working through pretty much all these 5 pillars in more depth than what we went through today, of course, because there's a lot to cover. We have 36 modules of information and homework and different practices that you have to do, different exercises that you have to do, and then on top of that you have case studies. So we do 5 clients. We work with 5 clients as case studies, and they all have 9 sessions over 3 months. So this is a big operation that we're running, as opposed to like what Ron is saying, the kind of the short course. This is a real like, hey, let's affect change. Let's not just talk about affecting change and then take some shots in the dark. Let's build our mentoring experience from, hey, I want to do this because that slight little voice inside of you that says, I feel like I could be a mentor, and I feel like I have something to offer, into building through those steps systematically into you hitting the ground running with your business when you're finished with your studies, because now you know your value ladder, your how you're going to do your promotions. So yes, Bron, very good point. Very, very good point. Lisa has said, I have to go. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. So that's great. Thanks, Lisa. How important is it, and how quickly should a mentor move into a specific niche? Is it okay to wait a bit? And what are the consequences of not moving into a niche right away? Okay. So for the benefit of those who don't know what niche is, niche or niche, as some people say in the US, is your area of specialization. So what is the thing that you specialize in? This is a great question because it's highlighting both the benefits and the downfalls of niching yourself too quickly. Some people have had very, very specific experiences, and they only want to work in that particular area for now. And when I say for now, you won't know what your work life is going to look for the next 21 years or 25 years or 30 years or 40 years, whatever amount of years you have ahead of working that you want to do this work for. So it's important to understand that niche is not necessarily set in stone. You can always rebrand yourself. You can always re-niche yourself. Okay, so it is important. Niching yourself is important so that you can reach the right audience and start, earning a living doing this. Because there are people who say, oh, you shouldn't charge for mentoring. But here's the thing too, like if this is your calling in life, you still have to pay your bills. Like you'll have an electricity bill, you have food that you have to buy. So we don't just exist just because somebody has a problem with people charging for people making money doing what they love. That's not your problem. So you can you still need to, as a mentor, you make a decision whether you want to do it pro bono or you want to do it you want to actually make money doing what you love. But so niching is important so you've reached the right people in a short enough time span so that your cash flow is not affected or is not negatively affected, at least for a certain amount of time. So you might have savings to say, okay, I'm going to do this mentoring full time. So I'm not going to phase myself out by taking a part-time job or whatever. I'm just going to do it full time because I have 3 months worth of savings, and so I can do it and I can go and do that. In those situations when you cut it off like that, you really want to be pretty clear in your niche so that you can start to make an income straight away. Now, if you don't feel really sure about the niche that you want to work in, there's no pressure for you to just choose a niche for the purpose of just having one, because there's no point, in my opinion, in exchanging one inauthentic expression when it comes to your vocation to another. So why would you leave a job that you don't like only to have another job that you're not interested in? So don't marry yourself to a niche too quickly if you're not sure. But in those cases, what I suggest that you do is that you niche yourself as a healing and achievement mentor, for example, and then you do passion projects within those. So you can do, hey, adrenal exhaustion workshop. Let's work on that for a bit. Women's work. Let's work on that. This is actually what happened to me. I was originally working with, women's work, body work training, mentoring training, obviously, INFX, so INFJs, INFPs. I had other health related, like I had this gym project. I've had all kinds of projects that even some of us who know me very well have never even heard of, because I have so many projects going on at the same time. Introvert Success Initiative. These are all passion projects within my niche of high performance mentor who wants to leave the world a more supportive and caring place than how I found it. And they all fall under that niche. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Very well. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So some people might have, okay, so I'm an INFJ. I want to only work with INFJs who have had sexual trauma as a child, sexual abuse trauma as a child, and then women. So female INFJs who've suffered sexual abuse as a child. You can even go as far as to say between the years of 3 and 7 years of age. So you can be as specific with your niche as you want to, or you can be as general as you want to. The more specific you are in your niche with your niching, the more of a specialist you become within that niche. And that can be very lucrative, as in when you can resolve a very specific issue for people, you will then have an ability to your abilities and your how people perceive you really is accelerated, and so you can really go into quite a high level of charging and so on and so forth. Not that this is just about that, but when you are in high demand, it's easy to work yourself into the ground if you do take every client. So I hope that clarified it a little bit more. Okay. Now let's go back to Katka's question about boundaries. Can you add some tips on the boundaries? I have an issue not to get involved with the client story personally. Is there a way how to stay involved but not too much? Yes. So Katka, can I ask you do you know your Myers-Briggs type? If you can just type that in there and I can give you a very specific answer to you that will help. I'll give you a general answer, but I'll give you a specific answer as well. So Katka, you're saying you're an INFP. Okay. So challenge that a lot of INFPs have with mentoring is that they can perceive very clearly the struggle that the person is going through. And because your level of empathy is usually so high, it can be very difficult to not be affected by what the other person is going through. Does that make sense? Yep, that's exactly my problem. Okay, great. So this is really, let me ask you actually another question before we move on, because it just helps me choose the right language for you. This is what we do as mentors. We choose the right language for the client. Are you familiar with the concept of the 4 people within? Are you familiar with my work, the 4 people within? And it's completely okay if you're not, because I can just go into, yes, I followed your webinar. Okay, great. So this problem that you're experiencing is a information collecting issue, because there's no filter on you collecting information. Okay. So what is likely to happen is that you as a child had experiences that were very hurtful, and those hurtful experiences have made you very empathetic towards other people's strain and stress. And please just type in answers if I'm off course, or if it's right, or if whatever. So just give me some feedback on that, so that, because if I go off track a little bit, I don't want to get off track. So when you as an INFP are having a problem kind of distancing yourself from the person's struggle. So the person is struggling, your client is struggling. When you have a problem distancing yourself from that person's struggle, is actually your 10-year-old inner child, which is memory, introverted sensing. What she's doing in that moment when she sees somebody else having struggle, she immediately remembers all the pain of when you were a child. And just for benefit of others, Katka said, that's true, I have a narcissist mom. Okay. So your 10-year-old inner child, which collects information very subjectively, because that's, she's introverted in nature, she is going to feel, or she's going to show all the pain that she remembers from when you were a child, and nearly almost like project it on that the level of pain that you experienced is the level of pain that the other person in front of you is also experiencing. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. With an exclamation point. Great. So we're on the right track. So what this means is that we need to, in order for you to stop being so involved with your client's life, what needs to happen is you need to, when you're working with clients, you need to collect information with your extroverted information gathering part of you, which of course for you is exploration, extroverted intuition. Are you following so far? Yeah, great. So this is a process that we call inner parenting, and you're probably familiar with this. So you want to use your inner parent, your grown-up process, your grown-up part of you, extroverted intuition in your case, because you're an INFP. You want to learn to use that instead of referring, letting the 10-year-old kind of refer back to what happened before, because those people that are in front of you didn't have the experience that you had with your mother. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. How do I do that? Great question. Okay. So the first thing that I want you to write down, and this is for the benefit of everybody else in the audience as well, when you're changing anything, I want you to remember and write this down. Change is hard. Change is hard. So that's going to set the stage for us to be willing to fail forward at least 30 times at this before we can expect any kind of change in our way of how we operate. When you're incompetent in something, like let's just say, for example, that all of us on this call are incompetent in inner parenting our inner children. We're incompetent. In order for us to get from incompetent to competent takes at least 10 conscious efforts. Only when you've failed 10 times can you say, okay, I'm starting to get competent on this. And then you fail another 10 times to get from competent to confident. So now you're starting to gain some confidence in your ability to inner parent. And then it will take at least another 10 times consciously being the key word here, before you can become fluent. So you have to be willing. Number one is change is going to be hard, and you have to be willing to fail forward at least 30 times. So that's the starting premise, right? Then the next thing that you do is, right? This is a big, any change is so much bigger than what we realize, Every change that we make in our lives is like us learning to walk again. So this is good to remember, that we often have these unrealistic expectations that we should just be able to change really quickly and fluently. We can't. We don't have the skills, right? We have to learn the skills. So we need to give ourselves a chance to succeed. So set yourself up for success rather than failure by saying change is hard, and it's going to take 30 times between now and when I can start to expect some kind of change. And then you've been willing to fail forward. Every time you fail, instead of berating yourself for failing, you go, isn't that interesting? What am I taking away from this? What am I learning from this failure? Because this failure is teaching me some very important lessons that I need to learn in order to get where I want to go, right? And then you start to get to know your inner parent process, your inner parent part of you. So Katka, for you, any other INFP on this call, it's going to be extroverted intuition. I saw some INFJs here on this call as well. So for you, it's going to be harmony or extroverted feeling. I had an ENFJ as well. So for you, that will be introverted intuition or perspectives. So make sure that, and some of you, I'm sorry, I don't know all of you personally, so I don't know all of your types. So, and this can be something we can talk about maybe on the call if you do want to take advantage of that half an hour pro bono call with me, just to see where you want to go. But now we want to get to know who this person is, who is this extroverted, in your case, extroverted inner parent? Who is that person? How do they actually operate? And then we can start practicing their way of operating, their way of showing up in the world, and again be prepared to fail 30 times. Does that make sense, Katka? Looking forward to my first 10 failures. Yay! Perfect. I love it. Do you feel that that answered your question, or do you have follow-up questions on that? We have a little bit more time. And anybody else, if you have questions, now's the time to type them in. Because really, Katka, in your case, it sounds to me like it's that, collecting the information from the people and then reflecting it back to how painful your experience was that actually makes you get involved so deeply. So then you're saying, so if I understand it well, the parenting process will help me to keep the distance. Exactly, because you're no longer relating to that person's pain on such a personal level. So you're now exploring possibilities of that person not having as painful an experience as you did, so you don't have to. You can be lighter with it. Because most people didn't have a narcissist parent. And for people like you and I, Katka, we've both had one. We know how destructive it is, right? So you and I, we have to remember that not most other people have had this experience. So for us to kind of, in a way, it's a way of projection. We're projecting onto other people that their pain was as severe as ours was, and that can undermine our ability to mentor the person, because we now think that they're a lot more damaged than what they actually are, and then we get kind of sucked into all that. So yes, the parenting process will help you see the thing for what it actually is. So it sets that boundary of, hey, you're out there, and also because it's an extroverted part of you, you're out there, I'm in here. So there's a big difference between the two information collecting parts of you. One is introverted, your memory, your 10-year-old, and one is extroverted. And when you use the extroverted part, then you can leave the work out there instead of taking it in here. Does that make sense? Yes. It's, as you said, it's needed. It is indeed. Sorry, I'm dyslexic, so reading is really hard. Reflection of my own pain. Yeah. Thank you for explanation. I can understand now that it's just the projection. And also just, yes, it's a projection, and yes, projection has a bad name, but projection to me is a lot like a manipulation, which means that it can be good or bad depending on what your intent with it is. Does that make sense? So use projection. So project onto a person who is about to get into a dangerous situation that they shouldn't go into that dangerous situation. So if you, for example, I don't know if you have this, Katka, but I have this thing where whenever I see a narcissist, I get a visceral reaction to it. So I know when somebody's a narcissist, no matter how beautifully they behave or whatever, I know that they are, and then eventually they turn out to be. So if, this is my projection, oh, that person's a narcissist and it's dangerous, then if I see a person trying to get into a relationship with, for example, one of these narcissists, I can project onto them and say, hey, that's going to go down very badly. Now that might be a friend. I wouldn't speak to my clients that way. I would say, really get to know the person and look at these traits, or, flag the traits. So not all projection is bad, not all manipulation is bad, but just be aware of what you're doing. So yeah. Okay, Katharina says, I'm a 9FJ. How should the extroverted feeling function be applied, understood when I feel too involved in a situation? Great question. I love talking about INFJs as well, of course. As some of you know, I have the INFX project, which is a passion project of mine. So I love both INFJs and INFPs. So with the extroverted feeling, it looks very different, okay? But the biggest misunderstanding of the extroverted feeling or the harmony process is that, as the name suggests, it's about harmony. The biggest misconception about it is that harmony doesn't actually mean getting along with everyone all the time. Harmony means creating an environment where everybody can equally exist. That's what harmony actually means. So one of the biggest jobs of the harmony process, the extroverted feeling function, is to set boundaries. And when you set boundaries from that place, as opposed to the inner 10-year-old, which also is a decision-making part of you, for you, accuracy, then when you make the decisions from the harmony perspective as opposed to the accuracy perspective, you make much more grown-up decisions, and you are able to set the boundaries without having to get angry first. The inner 10-year-old, because she's an introverted part of you, she generally only sets boundaries in the outside world after she's been very frustrated for a long time, and then it comes out really abruptly. And that's what, the INFJ door slam. It's a great example of an INFJ setting boundaries or attempting to set boundaries with the inner child as opposed to grown-up inner parent. Does that make sense, Katharina? Absolutely, yeah. So the big role of the extroverted feeling, INFJ extroverted feeling inner parent, is to get everyone's needs met, starting from your own. Get everyone's needs met, starting from your own. Don't get anybody else's needs met until your needs have been met, unless it's a life and death situation. Okay, we have time for one more question if anybody has, or I'm happy to wrap up. Oh, this has been such a wonderful session. I just love this work. Love it. I often think, what do people do who hate their jobs? This is very helpful. Thank you. You're very welcome. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you. Yeah, it really, truly just, I feel very privileged to be here with you. And of course, I'll send you the recording of this. But if you do want to, as I said before, if you do want to check out that suitability call with me, let's see if you're suitable as a mentor. What might be the things that might be holding you back from being a really effective and really extraordinary mentor? Then give me an email at desk@mariasumilov.com, and I am more than happy to be talking to you on a one-to-one basis. But please know that my time is very valuable, and I can only spare half an hour. So if we do end up doing a call together, be very kind of prepared with your top 3 challenges in your mentoring, and let's see how we can address those. So I'm feeling I'm a little bit overwhelmed with emotion about how privileged I feel about working with all of you. So thank you so very much for this session. There aren't really no words. I am loving this work with you. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Please have a wonderful day wherever you are. Have a safe journey if you're on the road. Some of you are on the road at the moment. Have a safe journey home. And I look forward to working with you soon. Take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and let's make the world a more supportive and caring place for us all. Take care.